All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the July 6th North College Hill City Council meeting. We will start with our prayer for NCH City Council. God, our Father, we are all your servants. We trust in your mercy and love. We trust also in your guidance. Direct the meetings of this Council of North College Hill to make good decisions for all the people who live in our city. Give all the members of this council wisdom and insight to know what is best for our city. Help us to be fair and just in all our decisions. Bless us all to do the very best we can with your help and guidance. We pray this in your name. Amen.
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 Share my screen. I'll now do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, roll call, Ms. DeWald.
Ms. Bailey,
Here.
Mr. Hedger, Ms. Underwood,
Here.
Mr. Milanovac, Erica, I see you. Is Mr. Milanovac there?
He is.
Yes.
Thank you.
Here, I'm sorry. I did it. I did the mute thing.
Keep your hands off the keyboard. Ms.
Sorry.
Thorpe,
Here.
Ms. Hartman,
Here.
and Mr. O'Shea. I have Mr. Hedger and Mr. O'Shea is absent.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb.
I'd like to make a motion to excuse Mr. O'Shea and Mr. Hedger.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, motion on the floor from Ms. Zorb, second from Ms. Underwood to excuse the absence of Mr. Hedger and Mr. O'Shea. Discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Ms. Underwood,
Yes.
Mr. Milanovac,
Yes.
Ms. Thorpe,
Yes.
Did we lose Ms. DeWald? In regards to the excusing Hedger and O'Shea, Ms. Hartman?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes 5-0. Ms. DeWald, are you back? All right, you do have in front of you tonight's agenda.
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb.
I'd like to make a motion to remove Ordinance 6, the first reading of Ordinance 6 from the agenda tonight.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood.
I'll second that motion.
All right, I have the motion from Ms. Zorb, second from Ms. Underwood to remove Ordinance 6, 2020 from tonight's agenda. Discussion. Mary, you back on audio? I now have video, so I'll call the roll. Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Ms. Underwood,
Yes.
Mr. Miller-Novak,
Yes.
Ms. Zorb,
Yes.
Ms. Hartman.
Yes.
That motion passes 5-0. Okay, we still have the agenda to,
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood.
I'll second that motion.
All right, have a motion from Ms. Zorb, second from Ms. Underwood to adopt the agenda as amended. Discussion?
Mr. President, I'm sorry, I got kicked out. Did we add or did we remove something?
We removed ordinance 6, 2020.
Ordinance 6, 2020, okay. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. President,
Ms. Bailey?
real quick, so I don't have it in front of me, oddly enough. The ambulance funding, should we amend the agenda to reflect the title as an emergency?
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood?
I actually was thinking about that, Ms. Bailey, and I think we have to actually amend the resolution itself to reflect the word emergency, and I was planning to do that. So I think that we have to actually amend the resolution itself, and then it can be, then we only need the 5 people we have here as opposed to 6.
Mr. President,
Yes, Ms. Bailey.
Ms. Underwood, I know we have to do it for the resolution itself, but do we want the agenda to mirror what that resolution will actually state?
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb?
the resolution itself has not been amended, so you can't amend the agenda until the resolution title has been changed.
Thank you.
May I ask one more question, Mr. President? I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead, Madam Mayor.
Why did we remove 6?
Substantial inaccuracies.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zorb. All right, motion from Ms. Zorb, second from Ms. Underwood to adopt the agenda as amended. I'll call the roll. Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Ms. Underwood?
Yes.
Mr. Miller Novak?
Yes.
Ms. Zorb?
Yes.
Ms. Hartman?
Yes.
Amended agenda is adopted, 5-0. Thank you.
Mr. President, can you
Yes,
hear me?
Ms.
at all?
Ewald. I can hear you now.
Great. Okay, so can you just catch me up real quick, or do I need to watch the video?
Just real quick, and I'll get you all this stuff. We removed ordinance 6, 2020. We did excuse Mr. Hedger, Mr. O'Shea, and we have now adopted the amended agenda.
Okay, and so we removed ordinance 6,
Yes.
and was there any other legislation that was removed or questioned?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Very good, thank you.
All right, we do have council meeting minutes from 6/1 and the special meeting on 6/15.
Mr. President, do you know when
Yes.
those were sent out?
I'm
sorry.
checking.
I'm looking right now.
Although, Mr. President, I believe each member has a hard copy, but let me check.
Thursday the 2nd, correct?
Yeah, I know it's been a while, yes.
Oh, wait, no, that was the ordinances. I'm sorry.
Okay, then, give me a moment.
Ms. Zorb, to answer your question, yeah, I do not see an email.
I can't find it either, Mr. President.
Well, I'm gonna fall on that sword, as Miss Bailey would say. I don't see where I sent them. So no, they have not been sent. Do
Okay,
we need to change the agenda again?
Not really.
No, we do
Okay.
not.
We can just
Okay,
move on.
Yeah, we'll
Alrighty.
add those. We'll add those minutes to the next meeting.
all righty, thank you.
Turn that over to you, Ms. DeWald, for communications.
For communications, we have the May-June edition of Cities and Villages. And I did receive an email from a resident regarding Resolution 9/2020, an assessment on her property.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood.
Ms. Sewell, did we all receive a copy of that email, or can we know what that email says?
One moment. I did forward the copy to you, but let me look here. I forwarded a copy on June 26th, and the email says, oh, good gravy.
I don't mean to correct you, but my email says it was on the 27th and the subject line says decertification for 6548 or 6584 Paris.
Excellent. I'm not, oh, I see it now. Okay. So the resident, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
The resident has requested to have future readings waived on the nuisance fee against her property. The special assessment was placed against my property and her property in error, and she needs to have it credited. And I sent that. Yeah, the 27th.
Did you find that, Ms. Underwood? Okay. We're good on that then, Ms. DeWald.
Okay, okay,
Thank you. Is that all for communications?
yeah. Well, Mr. President,
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if we should put the mayor's court report, and that, I don't know if that falls under correspondence or does it go under her administrative report?
It generally goes under communications because she sends it to you.
Okay, from now on, it'll be under communications.
Okay, thank you.
There's a hard copy in everybody's mailbox, and I did send that out the other day.
Any questions for Ms. DeWald? All right, thank you. Moving on to committee reports, budget and finance.
Budget and Finance has not met since our last meeting. I know that we have a lot of people out of town this upcoming Monday, so in new business, I'm going to try to schedule a day that Budget and Finance can have a meeting for this month.
So you will not be on Monday?
I don't think so, no. I'm open for Monday. Miss Underwood, are you open? Or, I'm sorry, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
I think Miss Underwood may be out of town and Mr. Hedger may be out of town. So our meeting is to be determined.
Mr. President, I'm
Ms.
sorry.
Underwood.
My trip was canceled, so I'll be here, Miss Bailey.
Miss Mary Jo, can you still do Monday?
You're muted.
Yes, I can.
Cool. So the next Budget and Finance Committee meeting will be Monday at 7:30.
Okay, thank you. City and Community Development and Recreation,
Mr. President,
Ms. Bailey.
as the co-chair, we have not met since our last meeting. Our last meeting was very, very productive. The upcoming meeting will be canceled and rescheduled at a later time.
Okay. Thank you. Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. President. All of the members of our committee were present for the meeting on June 22nd, 2020, I believe. Mr. Novak, Matt Miller Novak may not have been present. I didn't write that down, unfortunately. We discussed at length the new ambulance for the fire department. Ms. Hall was present as well as Mr. Mosby, and they were able to answer significant questions about the new ambulance. And my understanding was that the resolution would be presented as an emergency, so that we would have the ability to pass that or suspend the readings on that so that they could go ahead and purchase an ambulance for the fire department. We also discussed the need for police software. Okay, and in my notes here, it says Mr. Miller Novak was not present, so he wasn't present at that meeting. And apparently, Mr. Mosby informed us that Chief Tran has just narrowed down the software that he would like to purchase. And Mr. Mosby thinks that that'll happen in August or in September. So Ms. Zorb did ask for clarification, so we're waiting to hear back about that. There was an update with regard to the mayor's task force. And Mr. Mosby actually updated us with regard to what happened at the mayor's task force meeting. Ms. Hall was present at that meeting, and she explained how funding for the fire department works, how the funding for fire levies gets allocated to the fire department, as well as how the millage works on a potential levy. We briefly discussed the Mount Healthy levy, and we briefly also discussed some staffing issues with the fire department. We also talked about safety procedures briefly for council and committee meetings and a start date for in-person meetings. And Ms. Zorb did talk to ICRC, and she has determined where each member can sit in chambers so that everyone can be seen and heard. I did update the committee with regard to I'm still working on the format for meeting agendas, minutes, and other documents. We didn't really have an opportunity to talk about street cleaning, and our meeting was adjourned at approximately 8:34 p.m.
Thank you, Ms. Underwood. Next committee report, Rules and Public Policy.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood.
Mr. O'Shea is the president of that particular committee, and
Yes,
my
ma'am.
understanding is that he is the person who takes the minutes, and so he would be the person who would give us that update, and he's not, he has been excused for this evening's meeting.
Yes, ma'am. Are there any ad hoc reports? All right, I hear none. We'll turn it over to the administrative reports. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm glad to see that everyone is still doing well and staying safe during this COVID period. With that being said, we know that today we had COVID testing here in North College Hill. It started out really good. I went up there a couple times today, maybe like 3. Once I got out, there were 8 lanes of cars inside of the actual parking lot waiting to get tested. Unfortunately, when the storm came, it shut down the activities because every time there was a lightning strike, they had to stop and they couldn't resume until 20 minutes afterwards. As we know, the lightning did not stop. The storm continued. So as I was coming in, I spoke to Mr. Mosley and they just went ahead and shut the entire thing down. There were people who, from what I understood, who sat in line for 2 hours and they weren't able to be seen. I'm not sure if they would set up another one in our neighborhood for the citizens or whomever that did not get tested. But as far as where it is right now, I don't know the numbers. The other thing that's been of a great concern to me is the number, and I know we all have heard about the uptick in our area. And I know everyone is aware that the 45231 zip code is not just North College Hill. It is Mount Healthy. It is also some parts of Finneytown. With that being said, as we know, the mayor of the city of Cincinnati and also some surrounding cities have mandated that citizens wear masks in public. I have had a couple of emails, phone calls from citizens who are concerned about this as well. And it is also something that I think that we should do here in North College Hill. I don't see a whole lot of people without masks, but I do see a number of people who don't wear their mask. And so right now we're looking over the different legislations to see, or ordinances, or to see what we can do. If we can get that and enact that as soon as possible, just for the safety of our community, and maybe we can get those numbers down. Again, the numbers I've seen is, I don't think that the majority of it is just North College Hill. I think it's just a combination of all 3. One of the other things that I had, and I think that this should be a collaboration between community development and the safety committee. We all know that the car show is coming up, and we have to make the decision of whether or not we're going to have that car show. With the uptick, I don't know how safely we could do social distancing with that car show. I've been there, it's really nice, excuse me. And we hate to not do it, but just, I'm sorry, for the safety of our citizens, we may want to consider if we want to postpone it, but I don't want to make that decision solely. So that's why I would like the safety and community development to, if we could collaborate together to come up with a decision to best benefit and suit everyone, because I don't see the numbers going down anytime soon. I see them continuing to go up. So I don't know what that looks like. And that's really pretty much all I had. I did get some phone calls, and I know it's the 4th of July weekend, was last weekend. And I got enough phone calls and messages about fireworks. Not sure exactly what we could do. You would have to put on additional manpower. That would involve you going up to people's homes, knocking on their doors. And if we just don't get the calls, then we don't know directly where to go. I stood in my street and I looked around. I could see some coming from my backyard, but I couldn't pinpoint what yard it was coming from, just because of how I could hear the boom. So I could say it's these 3 homes, but I couldn't determine if it was directly behind me, 2 streets over. So I did speak with Mr. Mosby, and we're trying to come up with a solution for next year. I'm not quite sure what that would be, because this just doesn't go on here in North College Hill, goes on everywhere. I was in Fairfield on the 3rd around the same time, and the same activity was going on there. So it's just not exclusive here to North College Hill. People do these fireworks, and I'm sure those other neighborhoods, obviously, they don't have a solution either. Another thing that I did look over this ordinance for the one that you removed, the 6. I'll just say, this is just a statement from me. I'm not really in agreement with a voluntary recreation director long-term down the line. Because if we want recreation here, which is something that we're trying to work on as well, I don't believe that we can have a successful one without someone who would get paid. And that's all I have. Oh, and the other thing, Mr. Mosby will not be here this evening because he was volunteering over at the COVID site in the hot sun. So I don't believe he left there until after 7. And he went as soon as they started. That's all I have, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb.
I have a couple questions for the mayor.
Excuse me.
My first thing is I was sitting in a car in the COVID testing line, and I understand it was Hamilton County that was doing it, but if there is any opportunity whatsoever for us to provide feedback, communication would have been nice. It wasn't. I mean, if you tell the people that every time a lightning strike hits and it's going to be another 20 minutes,
Okay.
and we can look at the radar and see it's red, and we know that it's going to be a long time, people would have left a whole lot sooner. We
Got
were trapped.
Okay.
Absolutely trapped. People were driving up through the grass trying to get out of there. It got a little hectic for a while. So
Okay.
I just think if I mean, the food bus, the food van came in and they scattered, and then it started raining and they never came back. So it was literally the perfect storm. It was horrible sitting there.
I do believe that it was the National Guard. Hamilton County set it up, but I didn't go in the back, but I was told it was the National Guard who was supposed to be doing the actual testing.
I know the paperwork I filled out said Hamilton County.
Okay.
For whatever that's worth, I don't know.
Okay.
And then the other, I have 2 other questions then. I know you had signed some type of emergency proclamation quite some time ago, and I've reread it. I don't see a date on that. When does that end?
Well, I've been thinking, maybe 2-3 weeks ago, I thought maybe I should put out something. And then they came back and said that we had to uptick. So I said, well, maybe I shouldn't remove it. And we need to stay in a state of emergency. If we can remove the state of emergency. I'm just fearful that we're gonna be right back where we were in April.
Mr. President.
I am not giving an opinion. I am merely asking for clarification.
Right.
Mr. President.
I have one more.
Ms. Zorb still has one
I
more.
wanted to ask about.
I got your back here, Mary Jo.
I appreciate it. So my last one, and I'm sorry, Erica. My last one is, Madam Mayor, you mentioned something about a mask kind of enforcement thing. This is my opinion. So if you would
I don't mean to
put
cut you
out
off.
some,
No, I'm gonna cut you off. I'm sorry. Before you make your statement, it will have to be something that council would vote on. It wouldn't be me just saying, we're gonna do this. I meant to say that earlier. I would do some legislation and I wouldn't make that decision. I would do something where council will vote and say whether it's something that we want to do as a city. I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, where I was going with that is who's going to enforce that? I mean, to me, it's no different than the fireworks. If you can't get the police officers to enforce the firework stuff, so how in the world are they going to enforce mask stuff? And would it even fall on them? So I am not a proponent of passing legislation that can't be enforced. And that's all I'm gonna.
Okay. And that was those were some of the concerns that I had initially. That's why I was talking about it when I thought about it.
Ms. Underwood, did you have something to add?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Madam Mayor, just with regard to the state of emergency, the governor's state of emergency lasts until December. And my understanding is that any of the communities underlying, unless you said that your state of emergency ended earlier, then your state of emergency would last as long as his does. So that's my understanding of your state of emergency. Of course, I can't put thoughts in your head, but that would be what my understanding of it is, because it doesn't say what the ending is. And we know that the governor's doesn't end until December.
December, yeah. I wasn't really comfortable. That's why I said I went back and forth when I continued to watch numbers and I continued to watch the different news outlets and hear the different reports. And, I don't see a lot of people out at night, but during the day, it's like 1 million people.
And then with regard to the face mask ordinance, obviously the city of Cincinnati, we all know that the city of Cincinnati passed a face mask ordinance, but one of the things that they said during their discussions of that was that there are many communities surrounding the city of Cincinnati. And if there's no ordinance in the surrounding communities, how effective is the face mask ordinance in the city of Cincinnati? And what I would just point out, I was going to bring that up actually, and what I would point out to Ms. Zorb is that there are a lot of things that don't get enforced in North College Hill, which I'm not trying to criticize or anything, because I know nobody enforces the stop sign at the end of my street. It's like it's not even there. It's like I'm driving at my own risk when I pull off the end of my street. People yelling at me like I've done something wrong when I try to pull into traffic. So, I'll just say that maybe, stores and businesses in North College Hill can place a sign on their business that basically says, pursuant to North College Hill ordinance, whatever, a face mask is required when you're inside the building or something, if we decide to do that. So that's just my 2 cents.
And when we looked at, Mr. President, I apologize, like Dayton's writing tickets for $85. The city of Cincinnati is writing tickets for $25 if they don't wear them. And the enforcement is like you said. Is it really going to be enforced? Or is it just going to be something to try to persuade people to wear their mask in public, in the store? And if you come through here, and if I'm a visitor, like if I go through a certain neighborhood, I'm in my car and I get out and walk into the store because I don't see anybody in there and I don't have my mask on. So like you said, it would have to be posted somewhere, Walgreens.
Mr. President.
Mr. Millanova.
Well, I don't know if it's about being enforced or not. I will probably piggyback a little bit on what Erica said, and that's that sometimes you have to pass laws symbolically. I think one of the big problems we're having is you've got these very vocal groups about masks. And they're probably in the minority. I think, most of the numbers I see is 60%, depending on demographic. It seems to be party based. I think we know that North College Hill demographically is a strong Democratic area. And I think probably most of our citizens are probably in favor of masks or okay with them. But I think what we live in is this era of political cowardice where you have everybody in Congress saying you should wear a mask, everybody at the state capitol saying you should wear a mask, but because these people are really vocal and angry, they just kick the can, and they kick the can to the business owners. But what you see on TV is that when business owners try to enforce their own mask rules and people won't abide them, they become very violent with the business owners. So I think personally, as a small community, And again, kind of bouncing off of Erica, I think all the cities in Hamilton County, if the county doesn't have the guts to do it, and the state doesn't have the guts to do it, then apparently it's up to the mayors and the councils of the small cities to say, we are going to require masks, number one. Because number two, that makes it a lot easier for the business owners instead of it having to be a personal choice for them, their own rule to protect their employees, whether it's Kroger or the bakery or anybody else, if they can just say, hey, it's a law here, right? So I think personally we should be brave. We should fall on the sword, since that's a cliche going around here tonight, and say that we're going to make the decision to pass such an ordinance. Are the police going to stop every human being without a mask on? Well, probably not if they're on the sidewalk, but if someone's in a store and they're refusing to put on a mask or leave, then they can be arrested. Not necessarily fined for not wearing a mask, but arrested for disturbing the peace or any other problem that they're causing. And I think the government providing our businesses the backbone that they need and the excuse that they need to protect their employees without suffering all the political backlash is why we should really consider doing it. And we should consider making it legislation. It shouldn't be administrative action, to kind of bounce off of Tracy, because for some reason it finds itself under some kind of scrutiny in court. Legislative action is about 90 times stronger than administrative action. And we've seen that with some of the issues with mandatory closures of businesses in the courts. So Tracy, I guess my advice is to work with Bill and look at other ordinances around and throw something out to us. Let us vote on it. I know that I'm in favor of it and I'm willing to pull the trigger.
Well, I do already have two that we're reviewing, and I'll look at those two and send them to him and see which one he thinks is we should use. And on the other note, we've already I had Mr. Mosby reach out to Mount Healthy to see if there was something, because if you get your neighboring, they're our neighbor. So we're back and forth in Mount Healthy, they're back and forth here to see if it's something that they would be willing to do as well. And I do believe his concern was the same, the enforcement, but he was still, it was something that he would consider doing.
Well, I don't think we're going to get any backing from Colerain, so I don't
Right.
think we should expect them to follow our stunning example of public safety. But I would expect to maybe get it from Mount Healthy. I don't know about Springfield Township, but at least on our southern border. I mean,
Yeah.
people who go to Marty's, Vines and Hops or whatever, they're going to be in the habit of wearing masks because of the Cincinnati ordinance. So it shouldn't be that hard for us to do it.
Hopefully I can have something out within a week or two. Well, less than two. So here shortly this week, hopefully.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. Moving on, so Mr. Mosby's not here, so we don't have a report from the city administrator. Mr. Dieters is not here, so we do not have a report from the law director. That will bring us to call of members. We'll start with Ms. Bailey.
I'm sorry, Mr. President. I see that Ms. Hall is on here. I'm not sure if she had a report.
I did not prepare anything, but I can talk a little bit about the May statement that I sent out to everyone. I did make some changes. I added a breakdown of the revenues as well as the expenditures in addition to the normal reports that are normally sent out. And the reason why I did that, because I wanted our financial statements to be a little bit more helpful in the decision-making process. That way you can see what revenues are coming in, what's actually going out. To highlight a few things in that report, our revenues are actually doing fairly well, considering we had that drop in May of about 30% of our revenues in income taxes that dropped. But despite that drop, from year to date, we're still doing pretty well, according to our budget. So we're cautiously optimistic. We've moved forward with a few projects for the fire department to go ahead and deal with the roof issue, since we are doing fairly well. Again, it'll be probably August where we'll really begin to see how our income taxes are doing, because the due date is on the 15th of this month, and we should see those hit our account and our bank account in August. So that's all that I have. If you had any questions, just feel free to reach out.
Mr. President,
Mr. Miller Novak.
I have a question now, if that's okay.
It's okay with me.
Ms. Hall, is that okay with you? It's not a gotcha question. It's probably a softball for you. Is she still there?
I'm here. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I guess my first question is, and it's probably my only one, but when you said taxes due on July 15th, you're talking about the extension, right? So you're not talking about like the quarterly or anything, correct?
So all income taxes are due on the 15th. That would include the quarterly taxes. The ones that were due, anything that was due on April 15th is now due July 15th.
Okay, so because I was kind of wondering about that. So that is like the extension that was provided by the IRS and funneled down to the states. So we could have a lot of taxes that should have been paid for the annual year on the 15th of April that we might receive this
Yes.
month, correct?
Correct. We'll see the items that were pushed back because of the extension, but we will also be receiving the the quarterly taxes that are actually due in July as well. So we should see a significant amount of revenue theoretically.
Okay, thank you.
And I apologize, Ms. Hall. I was going to acknowledge you, and then I look down at my paper and I get very robotic on my agenda. So thank you, Madam Mayor, for helping me out there. Thank you, Ms. Hall. All right.
Mr. President.
Mary Dewald. Ms. Dewald.
Is that something I need to include her in on every agenda? And then that way, if she's not here, it's okay. If she is here, it's even better, or just leave it up to the mayor?
I'm fine to include her on the agenda.
All right, thank you.
All right, call of members, Ms. Bailey.
Mr. President, I don't really have anything, just asking everybody to continue to be safe and socially conscious of others. Other than that, I don't have anything.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Underwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. With all of the peaceful protest and all of the issues with regard to just emails and contacts that I've received with regard to a potential police task force, I had discussed the possibility of us creating a police task force, which would include members of council as well as some members of the community. So that's something that I'm interested in doing. And I know Mr. Hedger, he's not here, but he's interested in that as well. And I just wanted to hear thoughts from everyone else, but I do plan to make a motion. I was looking to see if there needed to be a certain number of members present to vote on that, but I couldn't find that in the charter at all. So if anybody knows anything about that, I would appreciate. Oh, excellent. Okay, got my answer there. So at this time, I would like to move to create a police task force, which would be include members of council as well as members from the North College Hill community to discuss various issues related to the Black Lives Matter movement, as well as other issues that we may have with regard to our North College Hill Police Department.
Mr. President.
Erica, I'm sorry, Mr. President.
Mm-hmm.
I had Ms. Bailey first. Hang on,
Okay.
Mr. Miller.
I will yield to Ms. Bailey.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I was just going to second that motion for all of that.
Okay. So now we're in discussion. Mr. Miller Novak.
Well, I mean, I'm in favor of doing it. The only thing I would probably want to do, I would ask that maybe the motion is a little bit more detailed in terms of how many council members, if there's a member of the administration, if there's going to be community numbers, like maybe the number of community members and who's going to appoint all the folks. I mean, I would recommend council appoints. And we have maybe a couple council members, an administrative member, and a few members of the community. And then I'd want to make sure that, as I was telling you from personal experience, that they would be subject to the Open Meetings Act, and we just make sure that whatever community task force realize if they're discussing that kind of business that they need to take meeting minutes and notice their meetings like we do. I don't want to get sued for violations of the Open Meetings Act, trying to do a good thing.
Okay. Well, Mr. Miller Novak, I will volunteer, obviously, to kind of take the lead on that. And I would like to include members of council as well as members of the administration. I don't necessarily want to say only 2 members of council if 4 members of council would like to participate. So I wouldn't want to limit it in that way. I think that different voices are, we need to have different voices to have a beneficial discussion. So I would, if I need to amend the motion, I would like to say that I would like to include members of the community as well as members of council, as well as and members of the administration. Obviously not all 7 of us, but just I'll say a reasonable number.
Okay, so
Right.
I'm sorry. So I've added members of the administration to the motion because that was not in there originally. I'll go back to you, Mr. Miller Novak.
Well, I mean, why would I see who has interest now? I mean, if you know Mr. Hedger, I mean, the only reason it's just, I know in principle, it sounds great to like whoever wants to come, but you kind of have to know who's on it because you need to know what a quorum even is, right?
Right.
I mean,
Well, I know Ms. Sorb is interested. I see her hands.
Yeah, there's not a
Mr.
committee in the
President.
world that Ms. Orb's not interested in, but we probably want to figure that out and stuff like that. I mean, I just, you trust me, you got a motion, everybody can vote for it. I'm just, I see where things have gone wrong in government cases, and I'm just planting seeds, if you will.
Well, Mr. Miller Novak, is that something that we can determine like at our first meeting and then come and report back? Or is that something we need to determine before we have our first meeting?
I mean, if you're going to do it completely by the book, I mean, to be anal about it, I mean, I would want to do it before the first meeting and at least have a general framework or something like that. Do you have specific community members in mind who have contacted you or?
Yes.
Okay. How many?
At least 5.
At least 5. I mean, it sounds like you could do like a 9-member committee.
So me, Ms. Zorb, Mr. Hedger, 5 community members. That's 8, and plus 1 member of administration, 9.
There you go. Unless someone else here wants to be on it.
Anyone else interested?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bailey.
I am definitely interested.
That's 10. I mean, we can,
That's fine.
11.
We can always add to it too. It's just, you should start with like a defined membership so you know what a quorum is. And
Right.
if 2 more people want to join it later on and the people in that committee are like, yeah, that's fine. I mean, we
okay.
can actually motion in such a way that the committee has the ability to add its own members it deems appropriate.
So, Mr. President, I would like to add that to my motion as well, that our framework initially will be 1, 2, 3, 4 members of council, 1 member of the administration, as well as 5 community members. And the committee will be able to add additional members as needed.
Stuck the landing.
As soon as I'm done writing. All right, so the motion now is include members, 4 members of council, 5 members of the community, 1 member of administration for a total number of 10, and the committee can add additional at its choosing. Is that correct?
Mr. President, Miss Underwood. Probably want to do 2 members of administration to have that odd number just in case for votes.
Okay.
So we're at 2 members of administration.
Mr. President,
Mr. Miller Novak.
go either way. You could always create I would allow them to, the committee can decide how it functions itself, but you can always make a tie-breaking power invested in somebody.
Okay. Are we sticking at 1, Ms. Underwood?
Yeah, let's stick for one at one
Okay.
because I think I've structured the motion to be able to add members as needed. I think
Okay.
we're covered.
Ms. Bailey, are you still seconding this motion?
Absolutely, yes.
All right. I don't believe we need any more discussion, do we? Call the roll, please.
Miss Bailey,
Yes.
Miss Underwood,
Yes.
Mr. Miller Novak,
Yes.
Miss Dorr,
Yes.
Miss Hartman.
Yes.
Motion to create a police task force, as mentioned, passes 5-0.
Thank you. Ms. Underwood, do you have anything else?
Actually, I was going to talk about the face mask ordinance, but we already talked about that. So I would just remind everybody to stay safe, and that is all I have.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Miller Novak.
Yeah, just to be quick. I did want to talk about the marchers. I thought it was a cool event. And I know I saw some things on Facebook that were a little bit concerned about the fact we have police presence. And there was talk about police presence, but it's probably want the public to understand that I know myself, and I think the other members of this council were more worried about protecting the people who are marching from, I don't know if anybody saw scenery from Bethel, but I have a friend that organized that, and it was not the protesters, but the 800 people that came on 250 Harleys. Not that there's anything wrong with the Harley, but it was those folks who came in and were very violent. It was the counter protesters. And I know that I was very concerned, and I did send an email to Ron Mosby that my concern was about counter protesters doing what happened at Bethel. So I just wanted the public to know that I know that I myself was in support of the march. I had no doubts that it was going to be a peaceful march. I think I'm always proud of the people that live in our community. And I was very confident that they were going to be peaceful and say what they had to say in a manner that is befitting of our First Amendment, befitting of our society, and something that we could all respect and honor. And I was a little bit more concerned about others who would want to disrupt that and intimidate that process. But luckily, from my understanding, that didn't really happen. It was a nice march that lasted a long time, went a good distance, and was something that I think we should be proud of as a community, that our residents were so peacefully respondent to an issue, and well organized and inspiring, that we were able to support them in that endeavor as a government and as a community. Other than that, I just do want to echo of the need to at least discuss legislation on masks. I know we're a very small community, but I know at the same point in time, a lot of our community members work at senior homes. A lot of people live here, and my wife works at a senior home. And, you know, it has only had, 54 cases of residents and 20 some staff members a while ago. Luckily, it's kind of run its course where she works, but a lot of senior homes, and I wouldn't doubt that that's why our area code maybe has a spike, because there's a lot of senior homes. I think our one senior home is in that quadrant, and you have Springfield has a lot of senior homes. And, you know, the thing to remember is that when you have a community where a lot of nurses and senior home employees work and they go and they shop, and we've got the folks to spread it. We've got people that can spread it to one another. And we have a lot of senior citizens that live in our community, people who are susceptible that live in our community. And we don't want people coming from other communities and shopping at our Kroger, getting our employees sick and getting our residents sick. So again, I think this whole mask thing has been the largest version of political kick the can I've ever seen. And we are the last line for the can to get kicked. And if we don't government up, whether it's man up or woman up, to do what's probably necessary to protect our residents, there's no one left to do it. So that's my thoughts on it. I do support the concept, and I hope the administration gets us something to vote on in haste.
Thank you, Mr. Miller-Novak. Ms. Zorb?
So I'll leave the COVID comments alone because we've beat it to death, in my opinion. So, I mean, we all know what we're dealing with. Just be smart about it, I think. But I do have something else to say. If you guys, I know Miss Nichols Mayor Nichols mentioned a couple of times how much she enjoyed the tulips. You are about to see a hold my beer moment. I don't know if anyone has been to the green space between, I think it's the credit union, the school credit union, and UDF. There's like 2 blocks of green space. It's the old Clark gas station, and it was a Mio's, and it was the pharmacy, and I don't know. It's been a million things, but now it's green space. If you've driven by there lately, you will notice things growing that are probably about 1.5 feet tall. And it is going to be 2 fields of sunflowers. So they're growing. I was very thankful for this rain today, because otherwise I was going to have to go up and water them all by hand, and I didn't want to do that. So I am very thankful for the rain. Thank you, God. So keep your eye on that green space, because it's going to be popping soon. That's all I have.
Ms. Bailey?
Miss Zorb, I'm so excited. Let me know if you need any help. I know I will go up there and water.
Where were you
with
last weekend? I fertilized them all by hand. Where were you?
You gotta let me know. Like, let me know, because yeah, that's all I've been doing since COVID is gardening. Like,
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood?
Ms. Zorb, sunflowers are my absolute favorite flower in the world. So if you need any help with that, I will be happy to come and help you.
Well, I'll even add to that. If you live in North College Hill and you see something growing that's about 1.5 feet tall, you may have gotten sunflower seeds planted in your area. There are several strays around, like at the police station and at the city center. And just don't pull any weeds that you don't recognize right now.
So would it be the city sunflower?
Some, because the city sunflower is dwarf.
Right.
And so they're actually staggered. So
okay,
there's 3 rows. The first row is going to grow 3 to 5 foot. The second row is going to grow 5 to 7 foot. And the last row is going to grow 8 to 10 foot.
So those sunflowers will be everywhere, because you know birds eat seeds.
I know. And think of all the honeybees that we're going to have. So if you have a bee allergy, don't go near there, but it's going to be great for the honeybees.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mr. President.
And beautiful.
Mr. Miller-Novak?
I'm going to thank you for doing it. And that's really cool, but I'm not going to offer to help because I killed a cactus once. Don't want it.
Stay away.
I will.
Just let me know when you're ready to harvest the seeds. I do love sunflower seeds.
They're all yours. Go get them.
Thanks. All right, Ms. Hartman.
I have nothing at this time.
All right, thank you. That moves us to legislation.
So because I missed the first part of the meeting, I believe that ordinance 6 has been removed from the agenda.
Yes, ma'am.
So our first reading on ordinance number 7, 2020 is an ordinance to approve current replacement page to the North College Hill codified ordinance and declaring an emergency. We have a first reading on resolution number 11, 2020, a resolution to request CARES Act fund and declaring an emergency. We have a first reading on resolution number 12, a resolution approving a purchase agreement for an ambulance for the city of North College Hill Fire Department. We have a second reading on ordinance 4, 2020, an ordinance to approve an assessment agreement with the city of Cincinnati, the Greater Cincinnati Waterworks. Second reading on resolution 9, 2020, a resolution to decertify assessments to the county auditor for placement on the tax duplicate. And we have a second reading on resolution 10, a resolution to assess unpaid water service accounts to the Hamilton County Auditor.
Thank you, Ms. Dewald.
Mr. President,
Ms. Bailey.
that was a little fast. Sorry, Ms. Seawold. I was trying to keep up.
It's all on the agenda.
It is all on the agenda. Resolution 12, 2020. Sorry, Resolution 12, 2020. We need to amend that agenda to add "and declaring an emergency" in its title.
Mr. President.
Ms. Bailey, are you making a motion?
Oh, that's
Yes,
right.
sir.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood.
I'll second that motion to, I'm assuming we're moving to amend the title to add the words "and declaring an emergency."
Yes, ma'am. All right, I have a motion on the floor from Ms. Bailey to amend resolution number 12-2020 to add "and declaring an emergency" on the title. With a second by Ms. Underwood.
One moment. Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Ms. Underwood,
Yes.
Mr. Miller Novak,
Yes.
Ms. Zorb,
Yes.
Ms. Hartman.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0 to add to the title of resolution 12 and declaring an emergency. Do you want me to read the whole title, including the new clause?
It will say a resolution approving a purchase agreement for an ambulance for the city of North College Hill Fire Department and declaring an emergency.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood.
I move that we waive the second and third reading for resolution number 11-2020.
Mr. President,
Mr. Miller Novak.
I just want to make sure I heard that right. She asked to waive it?
Suspend it, correct?
Well, I apologize. Suspend. I'm using the wrong language. Suspend the second and third readings.
Yeah.
Mr.
Well,
President,
we don't have enough people here to do that.
We do if it's an emergency. Well, according to the charter, you just need 5 if it's an emergency.
I think you need 5 to declare an emergency. That's different than suspending readings.
No, I found it. I read it just a bit ago. Hold on.
Can you read it again? Can you read it out loud?
I will. You give me a second.
Okay.
Probably should have.
You might be right.
Hold on.
Ms.
'Cause I was-
Underwood, it's
I was
section 9.07.
I was concerned about the ambulance.
I have it if you'd like, if you're having trouble.
Okay. Okay, hold on.
I have it.
I read one that said specifically about if it's an emergency though. That's, here we go, section 9.09, procedure of passage of emergency ordinances or resolution. The council may, with an affirmative vote of not less than 5 members, pass emergency ordinances or resolutions to take effect immediately upon their passage.
Yeah, I don't think that's what you think it means. That's declaring an emergency. So normally when you pass an ordinance or a resolution, it doesn't take effect for 30 days, which means someone can do what's called a referendum petition to kind of quash what you just passed. So that's what declaring an ordinance and an emergency means. But that doesn't suspend readings. I mean, suspending readings, you need 6 people. Those are 2 different things.
Mr. President.
Okay.
I think I heard Ms. Bailey first.
Well, considering we're probably going to have to set up special meetings to get the ambulance through as well, because that one is written in there that we can't suspend without all members present. I think we should just move on and schedule these special meetings.
Okay, fair enough.
Mr. President.
Withdrawing your motion.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President.
Mr. President. Oh.
Mr. Miller Novak.
Yeah, I want to be clear.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Ms. Zorb did come in before.
That's fine.
A couple minutes ago, and I forgot. Sorry.
So just to be clear, I think Ms. Underwood might be confusing 2 separate things. So the section she's looking at is what we need 5 people to pass a piece of legislation that has an emergency clause in it. But what she's trying to do is suspend readings, and that takes 6 people to do it. And that is in section 9.07, rule suspension. And it says the council on an affirmative vote of 6 members may suspend the rule requiring readings of an ordinance or resolution prior to its first, second, or third readings.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. President.
Mr. Miller Novak.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was trying to say. Mary Jo, I think, worded it a little bit more artfully, but unfortunately, I would have been in favor of doing it, but to suspend readings, we would have needed 6 people here. So I guess we're going to have special meetings.
Yeah, Mr. President.
Ms. Underwood.
I would just like to point out to everyone that the resolution 11-2020, we need to pass that in order to accept the money from the federal government, which we need for our budget. So I would just ask everyone to be mindful of that so that we can, I don't know about, with regard to special meetings, we probably need to do something to address that. And also with regard to the ambulance, I know I didn't include that in my report, but Chief Bells told me that the ambulance that they're they have one really, newer one, but the other one that they're using breaks down so often, and the repairs on it average a cost of between $3,000 and $5,000, which, will add up to be more than the cost of the new ambulance. And in addition, the thing is over 20 years old. So that's probably also, I would just something I would ask everyone to keep in mind.
Mr. President.
Ms. Zorb.
Ms. Hall, I believe you're still on the line. Is there some type of, I see a bunch of dates on this resolution 11-2020 about the CARES Act. Is there some definitive timeline that this has to be entered by that we have to hit?
To my knowledge, I believe those funds are available now and that we need to have the emergency resolution passed in order to draw down the funds. I can speak with Mr. Mosby tomorrow to see if there's any other deadlines that we need to be making as well. and email everyone.
Perfect.
Mr. President.
Ms. Bailey.
Ms. Zorb, I've talked to Mr. Mosby about this kind of at length. It's not really that we have a deadline to get it in. It's the deadline to use the funds by or deposit them back into the account of the wherever we got them from. So the faster we get it through, the faster we can start billing and being reimbursed. Because in October, we can't do anything beyond that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bailey. All right, move on to old business.
Mr. President,
Ms. Bailey.
as far as old business goes, we still have Mr. Dieters' proposal in front of us. And we did speak about either A, making him an employee, or B, putting on some type of contractual agreement in our last finance meeting. But I would like to call a committee of the whole or put it on a special council meeting coming up to discuss this.
So you kind of cut out there. You said a committee of the whole or special council meeting?
Yeah, whichever one. I mean, we needed it. The members of finance would like to just consult everybody, just so that way everybody is on the same page. So either or is cool with me.
Mr. President.
Mr. Miller Novak.
I mean, given that, my opinion is given that it's not any kind of true emergency compared to these other things that are much more kind of bearing on us in terms of the ambulance and funding regarding the COVID issue. Maybe just on the next regular meeting, we should add executive session and under old business or something like that, because again, it's an employee. We should talk about it in executive session.
How does that sound, Ms. Bailey?
I am cool with that.
Okay. We'll get that on the agenda for our next regular meeting.
Mr. President.
Ms. Bailey.
Also now in old business, when Ms. Nichols, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, do you think that we can have a mask ordinance?
Yes, well, I'm trying, as I said earlier, I'm trying to have something before the end of the week that I can get to you. When are you trying to have your special or your committee of the whole?
That's a new business, I reckon, so.
Okay. I'll see what we can try to get before the end of the week.
Any other old business?
Yes, just a quick update. The Dallas Avenue estimated decent sale price between, I'm pretty sure Miss Underwood, correct me if I'm wrong, 44,000 and 55,000.
Mr. President, Mr. President,
Ms. Dewald?
I am not getting Miss Bailey clearly at all. If she could speak slower or louder or something. But I'm just getting a lot of run-on words and I really can't understand. So if I can't understand it now, I'm not going to understand it when I rewatch the movie.
Ms. Bailey, would you mind giving that another try?
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I heard Dallas Avenue.
Yes, the Dallas Avenue house that we own. And I said, correct me if I'm wrong, Miss Underwood. A fair selling price is between $44,000 and $55,000.
As I recall, yes, in my recollection, yes.
Thank you.
All right, let's move to new business.
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb.
I would like to make a motion that we refer ordinance number 6, 2020, establishing salaries and staffing levels for employees back to the Finance Committee to fix all of the errors.
Mr. President,
Ms. Bailey,
I will second that.
all right, so motion by Ms. Zorb, second by Ms. Bailey to refer ordinance 6/2020, which is the ordinance to establish salaries and staffing levels for city employees, back to the Finance Committee. Discussion. Ms. Dewald, please call the roll.
Thank you. Miss Bailey,
Yes.
Miss Underwood,
Yes.
Mr. Miller Novak,
Yes.
Miss Zorb,
Yes.
Miss Hartman.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Ms. Bailey.
Madam Mayor, can we pretty please have Mr. Dieters look at this again with an emphasis on the fire department?
Wait a minute, I heard Dieters, then fire department,
Yeah.
sorry.
Thank you.
If Mr. Dieters can look at this again in regards to the fire department and their union contract, should they be
Okay.
on this or off of this? And can we finalize the employees that should be on this and get that together?
Okay.
Any other new business?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bailey.
we have to schedule a special meeting or two.
So we do need to schedule a special meeting. I'm concerned of trying to schedule a special meeting where we need everybody present and we don't have everybody present to schedule it.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
Mr. President.
Mr. Miller Novak.
I mean, I don't know what the time frame we're really looking at is, but and we only need 5 people for declaring an emergency to make it immediately effective. We would need 6 to suspend the readings, but if we have to schedule 2 more special meetings, I mean, we can technically do it to people here, but we can also do it through email.
Please clarify.
Well, I mean, we can always schedule a meeting.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's not taking an official action, right? It's just scheduling a meeting. I mean, someone else can call it. I mean, so we can throw out some dates here and see what happens too.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood.
can I just suggest that since we have 5 people here, can we all just figure out 2 dates that we're all available within the next week or so, or a week and a half, 2 weeks, and then go ahead and schedule the meetings and then, do the appropriate notices and that kind of thing. But because I'm just afraid that if we start trying to schedule it through email and people have limited access to email because they're on vacation or whatever the case may be, we still won't get, we won't accomplish anything. But we have 5 people here. All 5 of us can be present for the second and third reading of all of the legislation. So if we can all agree on 2 dates, we can just, it won't be a long meeting, we seem to be very efficient with those special meetings. They tend not to last more than 10 or 15 minutes. So I would just ask my fellow members of council just to sacrifice 15 minutes of 2 evenings.
So, Mr. President,
Ms. Dewald.
because 2 meetings are involved, and Mr. Miller Novak, you may know the answer to this. Do they have to be like 24 hours apart? Can they schedule one meeting for, say, let's say Wednesday night at 6:30, and then turn around and schedule the second meeting for 7 o'clock.
That's creative. So I don't
Well, it
have an
is.
answer. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know that I've seen a case that addresses that either way. So I don't have an answer, but I think if you look at our, if you look at our
so,
charter, we have an amount of time to notice a meeting, but not an amount of time listed in there that they need to be a part.
right, exactly. I mean, we need a 24-hour notice, but we don't have to say they have to be so many hours or days or any kind of time frame apart.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make it easier for you guys.
Well, Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood.
I don't, Ms. Dewald, that's a great, it sounds creative, but
No,
I don't want
it's
to
not.
I don't want to invite a lawsuit because I know that certainly that's one of those gray areas that could go either way. So I would just rather,
I'm not saying doing it. I just thought if
Yeah.
somebody had an answer, we could move forward on it. But if
Yeah.
they're,
Mr. President,
Ms. Bailey.
I'm free any night this week.
Mr. President.
Mr. Miller Novak.
I have a lot of freedom if it's like 7:30. It's just tough for me the earlier it is, but we could do 7:30 knowing that it would be a quick meeting. Then I could do any of the next 3 nights at 7:30.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood.
I can do any night except for Wednesday, unfortunately. Wednesdays are bad for me.
Ms. Zorb.
I am committed Tuesday and Thursday.
What about a Saturday morning?
I was just about to say that.
I may not be there, but this Saturday I can't do. Unless it's
Mr.
like
President.
9 a.m.
Mr. Miller Novak.
Well, Tracy doesn't need to vote, but I could do a Saturday morning. I might just appear by telephone because I'll probably be like out, but I know it'll be quick enough. I can do it on the road.
I could do Saturday morning as well, Mr. President.
Ms. Zorb.
I could, as long as you do not mind hearing 2 babies running around in the background.
Ms. Hartman.
If it's at 9.
Sounds like a good time to me.
Ms. Bailey.
9 a.m. Saturday morning?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I can do that.
All right, so July 11th. Saturday, July 11th, 9 a.m., special meeting.
Mr. President, was Friday an option for a 7:30 meeting or not? Did I not pay attention well?
Nobody mentioned Friday. I'm not going to mention Friday because that's not good for me.
Oh. We do need a second day, right?
Yes.
Mr. President,
Ms. Bailey.
how about Monday at 6:30? It would normally be City and Community Development.
They're canceled.
I have another idea. If this is only to have a reading, because we know we can't have 6 people, then you only have to have 4. So find a night where you got 4, and that would be your first one.
Mr. President.
Mr. Miller Novak.
You could do the second reading with 4, Mary Jo, but if we want to add declaring an emergency, we need 5 for the third reading.
Right. That's exactly what I was saying. But you can't suspend readings. So for the second reading, you only need 4 people there.
So you're
That's my
suggesting
point.
one of these other nights this week that we couldn't all agree on could be our second reading.
Exactly. Thank you, Mr. Graver.
I am following you now.
Okay. Well, which night was 4 of us available. I was good for tomorrow, Wednesday, or Thursday if it was at 7:30.
I'm good for Tuesday. Oh, I'm also muted. Oh,
No,
I'm
you're
good for Tuesday and Thursday or Friday.
I can do all of the above.
Is Tuesdays too soon?
Probably,
We can't do Tuesday, right?
right?
That's putting our clerk through a whole lot. I would prefer not. Thursday it is.
So Thursday, the 9th?
Sure.
At what time?
Mr. Miller Novak suggested 7:30 earlier.
That's what Mr. Miller Novak needs.
That's fine with me.
All right,
I'm
so,
cool with that too. Yeah.
Cool.
okay, so I have Ms. Bailey, Ms. Underwood, Mr. Miller Novak, Ms. Hartman, are you available?
Yes.
Okay, so that would be 4. All right, so we have a special meeting scheduled for Thursday, July 9th at 7:30. And a special meeting scheduled for Saturday, July 11th at 9 a.m.
Mr. President,
Ms. Bailey?
and these are for the CARES resolution and the ambulance resolution.
Resolution 11 and 12.
Right, just resolution 11 and 12, right?
And hopefully Saturday, if we have the mask ordinance.
We will need to know that and have that specifically put in the
Right.
agenda.
I know, I'm trying to send out my stuff now.
Okay.
When are you doing your agenda?
When do you need that by, Ms. Dewald? For Saturday?
Well, I would need to post for Thursday by Wednesday at 7:30. But once we have 2 meetings, my intention was to put both meetings on the same notice. So I have to ask, are you discussing both resolution 11 and 12 at both meetings?
Yes, ma'am.
Just for the
And
meeting.
then the mask ordinance or resolution would be what?
Possibly.
I'll see if they can get it by Wednesday.
Okay, so I would need it before 7:30, well before,
Ms. Dewald, can I suggest you set a time that you're comfortable with?
yeah, how about 5 o'clock?
Ms. Nichols, shoot for 5 o'clock, please. I'm sorry, Madam Mayor. And Ms. Dewald, let me know how I can help you with this.
Well, the posting now is relatively easy.
Okay.
It's just that my schedule is not all that opened on Wednesday. So if I could have the information by 5, it takes nothing to type it up, and all I have to do is put it up there on the board at the city center and get it posted on Civics Plus. At least that's my understanding. If anybody knows differently, please let me know right now.
I think Mr. Mosby would then have to put it on the Facebook page or something then too.
Yeah, we do have
Correct.
to post it
Right.
electronically.
I don't have access to that. Yeah. I only have access to the Civics Plus, which puts it on the city website, and then that bulletin board outside of the office.
You have to post this at the council addresses?
Oh, dear God.
Again, tell me how I can help you.
Mr. President. I
Why
would
can't they
recommend saying, Ms. Dewald, I don't need one.
Thank you.
Miss Dewald, I don't need one
Yes.
either.
That
Miss
saves me
Dewald,
a
I
lot of
don't need one.
Yay.
Ms. Dewald,
Please
I would
say you don't
require
mean-
one
No,
printed
you're
on
gonna
gold leaf with
Okay.
a painting of Mother Mary holding Jesus.
I'm gonna up you one. I'm gonna mail it.
Wade, I want one of those, Miss Seawold. I changed my mind.
And we have lost it, folks.
You could just
Okay,
email
Miss
me.
Zorb,
Just email me the agenda like everybody else. I'm fine.
that was my intention, just to email it.
That'd be great.
All right, for this one time.
Sure.
Miss
Mr.
Dewald.
President,
Yeah, I haven't heard from Ms. Zorb yet.
I'm trying to get in. Since you will have to print it out anyhow to post it, can you just print one and put it in my mailbox and I will get it from there?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All righty.
All right, so we have meetings.
Hold on.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. That does not
Yes,
account
please.
for Mr. O'Shea and Mr. Hedger. They will need theirs on their door.
Those will be delivered.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
All right, so special meeting Thursday, July 9th at 7:30 PM. Second special meeting Saturday, July 11th at 9 AM.
Mr. President,
Yes, ma'am.
I had a question for Ms. Bailey. Ms. Bailey, the information that you need about Mr. Dieters, you need that by when? Your next meeting? Or when?
Yeah, Mr. President,
Ms. Bailey.
yes, ma'am, as soon as he can get it done. So before my
Okay.
next, way before that, because this is like round number 4.
So you need it by Monday.
Yes. And it with enough time that the members of finance can read it and have their thoughts and stuff ready to go Monday night.
Okay.
All right, any other new business?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bailey,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb? Ms. Zorb?
I would like to second that, but I forgot one clarification that it needed to make. Can I
Okay.
do that now or is it too late?
No, I'm fine. Go ahead.
Sorry. When I mentioned the sunflowers, I think I completely omitted the whole serve NCH part. So that's my bad. That was on serve NCH that did that and not just me.
Were you getting nasty text messages after you announced that?
Not yet, but I'm sure they're on their way.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for that. All right. Motion on the floor from Ms. Bailey to adjourn, second by Ms. Zorb. Call the roll, please.
Miss Bailey,
Yes.
Miss Underwood,
Yes.
Mr. Miller Novak,
Yes.
Miss Zorb,
Yes.
Miss Hartman.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0 to adjourn.
Thank you. We are adjourned.
Have a good night.
Ms. Zorb, you will make sure ICRC is lined up for this.
You got it. Sending the
few
emails
meetings.
now.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Have a great evening, everyone. See you Thursday.
Good night.
Keith, thank you for your help tonight, buddy.